Welcome, Tom, to this Investing in Impact podcast. How are you doing?
I'm good. Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to come and even share ideas, exchange thoughts, and even talk about a very new space and see and think about the potential and generally what needs to be done, what we need to think about. So happy to be here.
Thank you very much. I'll have you know, you are the first founder we're talking to on this AI series. So welcome very much. Just to get us started, I'd like you to just tell us a bit about yourself. Today, you are the CEO of Neural Labs, which is an AI company. But I'd like you to tell us a bit about your background. Yeah, if you could get us started with that.
Sure, why not? My name is Tom Kinyanjui. I like to say I grew up as a normal person, or rather, as most of us did. I wouldn't say I was an outlier. And I think I grew up facing challenges that everyone else did. I grew up with the opportunities that everyone else had. And I grew up in a nuclear family with my dad and mom. At some point, I had to go to boarding school as from class 7. Pursued the normal 844 system, which I thought I never fitted into. This is because I was always crushed to remember some concepts, to even grasp some concepts, to even pass exams, until I discovered that it doesn't always have to be that serious. Sometimes you could be an outlier in a good way, like in a positive way. And I like to say the story that talks to me every day, and it's very simple. It's the story of the ugly duckling. A duck is born in between ducks. All the ducklings look similar apart from one. He's bigger, doesn't have webbed feet, and ugly. And he struggles a lot to fit into this ecosystem of the ducks, until one day he sees a flock of swans and he realized he's not even a duckling in the first place. He was a swan bracketed with ducks by mistake. He realized he's not ugly, he's beautiful, and he flew away. And I believe that's my life. I was an average student, sometimes even poor, sometimes even getting concepts had to take a lot of time, practice over and over again. But me failing in chemistry, probably also in agriculture, didn't mean I wouldn't perform behind a computer. And when I realized that probably technology was my thing, I definitely flew away.
Excellent. I love that. That's very inspiring. So you're saying you were an average student, didn't do too well in some cases.
Most cases.
In most cases. I like that. Thank you for that vulnerability. But here you are today. You're the CEO of a company in the AI sector, no less. So maybe tell us a bit about your company, Neural Labs. What's Neural Labs about? What are you trying to do with Neural Labs?
For sure. I studied finance and statistics in my undergraduate. But as I was thinking through, especially entering a competitive market with an average grade in high school, and I would often see in internships, for instance, in these big organizations that thought I would land into, like KPMG. Probably I needed to have an B+ in my high school diploma. I didn't have a chance. So I thought of how do I become an outlier, and that's when I pursued machine learning in data science. And while pursuing this course, uh, unlike the normal schools that I went to, this time I was taught how to learn on my own. And that's how I grew up into participating into so many challenges on Kaggle, Zindi, and Omdena, and continued way after school. And at this point, as I was working on some of the challenges on Kaggle, I realized that this is what Africa needs because we are working on data within the healthcare space, especially because this is where healthcare services are overused yet under-resourced, and I would identify the potential of technology in helping specialists, especially in Kenya, for instance, radiologists, in diagnosing images. Just imagine if you had 10 patients and I'm able just to categorize the images as which is most important. I'm able to at least automate a report for you. What is left as a radiologist is just to go through, check on a few things, then sign it off. So that's what led me there. But a more closer story is like every other African family, we have lost someone who was there to us due to an entirely probably preventable disease with better health care.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, so it's a story that every other African country or rather African person would share because it's always chaotic, the long queues, the wait time sometimes go home on painkillers, awaiting your diagnosis. I felt technology was here, and especially AI has the potential to change that, to give us a new song in the near future.
Thank you very much. So you are inspired by a family member who went through a difficult health experience. And I'm wondering at this point now, what is your mission and what's the vision of your company?
Will be to democratize access to diagnostic healthcare in Africa. And in a simple language, what I mean is to influence or rather offer a helping hand to doctors so that we no longer have to wait for so long to receive lab results. We want to make it in real time, probably even before you put back your shirt on after an imaging modality. That's what we are hoping for. And the only way we could do that and we could achieve that is by adopting and moving to more advanced and recent ways of doing things. And that's what we hope to do at Neurolabs Africa, especially in the medical imaging space.
Okay, so why neural labs? What does neural labs mean?
Like the name says, it's about neurons and a lab, I would say, and of course, Africa, our continent. But neural labs basically are how technology, especially AI, works. It tends to mimic senses, like your sense of sight, especially in medical imaging.
Yeah,
It's like training an artificial
brain.
or rather an artificial radiologist on how to check out for pathologies, like how you'd go to hospital and they tell you, this is how you check for an infiltration, this is how you check for a consolidation. So you're able to train this technology with such images and it's able to learn and it's able to. And the beauty about technology never forgets. You probably forgot something that you learned in your first year. But with this now, it always keeps these insights, making it more effective, more faster, and always on the go and always learning.
Okay, so neural labs implies brain imaging. Is that what you're doing, or what kind of imaging, what kind of diagnostic services are you offering? If you could get a bit specific.
Okay. I would say like neural is a neural network
Yes.
when it comes to technology. When it comes to like a normal person, a neuron is probably like a part of your brain that is responsible for doing something. And this time for our case, it's medical imaging diagnosis. So what we do, we screen medical images for common indicators of pneumonia, tuberculosis, and lung cancer. So I'll give you a scenario. When you go to your hospital, you see your doctor and you tell him or her how you're feeling. So I'm 25, I've been having chest pains for the last 2 days, and they're like, maybe they should send you to the lab so that they could have more information from an x-ray. So you go to the lab and you meet a radiographer who will take you through taking a chest x-ray. Then when you're done, they'll tell you probably, could you wait for probably a day or two so that we can have your results. So there's a specialist or a special doctor who would look at this image, who's called a radiologist, and write down pathologies. Like you've heard what people told they have water in their lungs. That's called a pulmonary effusion.
Mm-hmm.
So that's then once he writes down these reports and he says like presence of pleural effusion, there was presence of consolidation on the left lung. This is then given to your doctor. Then your doctor uses the information you gave during consultation and the report to make a diagnosis and say, this is actually a viral pneumonia, this is a bacterial pneumonia, these are tuberculosis. So we come in at the lab. This is where a lot of time is taken, and we ensure that all the results are given in real time. So you have a pre-screening, like this is what we think this is, so that your doctor can even think of starting a medication as we wait your radiologist or the specialist to have a look. On the other hand, we also help the radiologist. Instead of spending 7 minutes looking at an x-ray, he or she has a pre-screening. So what is left is just to confirm, then edit the report, then sign off.
Thank you. So what you're saying is that your technology helps make diagnosis faster.
Exactly.
What I didn't hear you saying is whether it improves the quality of diagnosis. Could you speak a bit to that?
Yeah, it does.
How?
And especially when it comes to when we talk about the point that I said, it's able to remember everything on every single data that it was talked about. So for instance, if you work on something or you don't work on something over time, you probably forget the basics of how we used to do this, and you'll need to learn again and maybe do a refresher course.
Yeah.
But with AI, despite the unique cases, the once in a while cases, it's able to make sure that we don't miss out on this, or your doctor doesn't miss out on that. So it makes it even rather what we would call prevent any case of misdiagnosis. Yeah, so that's how I would explain it.
Brilliant. So it makes up for the possibility of human error in diagnosis.
Yes.
Okay, great. So speaking to Neurolab specifically, there are many companies out there in this AI space and even in the diagnosis space. What is it that Neurolabs is doing that you would say is unique?
First of all, I would say our focus on African data. Because you see, diseases tend to be prevalent based on a region. So probably find out that people from a certain region, probably in the West, do not have a lot of cases in tuberculosis and in pneumonia. So with our technology being able to focus on diseases that are prevalent in the region, gives us a niche, because we're able to train, or rather offer a solution to address challenges that fit our context. So that is one thing. Two, I would say our team is very unique in a way that we have participated in a lot of challenges on these platforms. We have gotten to interact a lot with a lot of data, especially big data on even Zindi, Africa, Cargo Land. We have been able to learn the dynamics on how to handle huge data, how to deal with big data. That's also an added advantage. Moreover, I would like to also add that we don't just say this image. In fact, we don't say this image is a tuberculosis or it's a pneumonia. No, we check for pathologies. That's the work of your doctor.
Yes.
So we'll check for indicators. Then your doctor will use your past history, information you gave during consultation to make a diagnosis. So we'll just screen for common pathologies like an infiltration and fibrosis, a thickening, cardiomegaly, and probably what we would call a calcification. So a list of 13 pathologies for now.
Brilliant. So I like what you're saying, that your company is unique in that you are looking specifically at diseases that afflict Africans. And then you're also saying that your AI is built off of African data sets. Great. So moving on, I'm curious to hear from you. What are your entry points into the health system? And maybe now looking at it from a business point of view, how do you support the health system? Where do you get in? Or where do you come in?
Like I mentioned, we come in especially in the lab, and especially when it comes to the radiology department. This is where all medical images are analyzed. We come to ensure that there is efficiency, that there is what we would call utmost care, by ensuring that we minimize any chances of a misdiagnosis. And especially this is driven by the fact that we are having big data. So we have different scenarios. So when we come in here, once we help you as a radiologist to save 6 minutes of your time, 5 minutes of your time, sometimes even more depending on the type of imaging modality. When it comes to CTs, even probably 20 minutes of your time. So by you give us a token, you subscribe to our technology either per transaction or in a monthly basis. So it's driven up to you depending on, again, your volumes. If you have a lot of volumes in X-rays, you prefer such a solution in a subscription. If you only have very few cases of a certain modality, then you'd prefer that transactionally.
Brilliant. So maybe if you could just help our listeners to understand a bit better. Is this like technology working off a cloud? And if I was running a hospital, for instance, and I wanted to use your service, so how would we work that out? And yes, you're working with the radiology department. Do you install a software in their computer? Do they sign up on your service? If you could just go into the detail.
Yeah, it's mostly on cloud, but again can be on premise depending on the hardware, especially if they support AI models, offline models. So being on cloud makes it very easy. You don't have to be at the hospital physically to use it. You can use it while you're probably working from home that day. And
I really like that one.
and your PACS enables you to share images. And once we get to that hospital, it's up to the hospital to decide because our APIs are end-to-end and can be integrated on existing hospital infrastructure, like the PACS, the Picture Archiving Communication System. So you're able to connect to the Picture Archiving Communication System so that the radiologist doesn't have to stress to download an image, then upload it on another platform. So they're able to do it on their daily work environment. So we can integrate it on your PACS in a hospital, and it's based off the cloud.
Brilliant. So you integrate with the facility workflow so that it's a seamless process.
Yes.
They don't have to really do anything other than just connect to your service through their API.
Yes.
Brilliant. Now, moving on, outside of your service, I'm curious to, first of all, if you could tell us, are you in the market yet? Is this service available for potential customers?
Not yet. We're still in the early stages. We're conducting a clinical validation in partnership with UNICEF Innovation Fund, where we are assessing our precision score, or rather what you would call accuracy of our technology. We want to understand if we told a radiologist that on this image there is presence of a consolidation on the left lung, at which confidence level is the consolidation actually there?
Yes.
Is it really there? It's like if I told you you're holding a tablet. Is it a tablet or a book? So this is what we are assessing today. And we hope that in the near future, we shall now start offering this technology to radiologists, to their diagnostic labs, and also hospitals for them to use and utilize a new way of reading and screening medical images.
Okay. So, Tom, how far off is that? We're in January 2023. When do you see yourselves?
2024.
2024. When do you see yourselves getting to market?
We are hopeful by the end of the year.
Okay.
We should have gotten into market. Because again, it's a question on data, how much data you're able to get for training, how much data you're able to annotate. You see, we use a threefold approach to annotate data. This is because this is to increase human level performance. You see, as a specialist, you might think this is not a consolidation. Then a more experienced specialist will confirm this is consolidation. So we tend to take at least 3 options, or rather at least 2 options. Then one, if there is a disparity, then there is one who breaks and says, oh, this is actually a consolidation. So it's a lot of process, especially when it comes to data annotation.
So you're about 10, 12 months to market. And how long have you been doing this?
Actively, I would say for the last 1 year.
Okay.
Actively with our end users. Previously, from that, it was a lot of coding, thinking about how to actualize this idea. Then from last year, we started now working with radiologists who would give access to the platform and they would share feedback. And now we are working towards some of the feedback that was collected from these end users, and simply entails data collection, data annotation, mostly. And once we work on that, we'll have a newer version of our technology, which we believe would be used in real life scenarios.
Great. So my next question is around approval. Will you need to pass through any government approval or authorization process to offer this product to the market?
Of course. Like every other new way of doing things.
Yes.
For instance, if it's a new drug, you visit the Kenya Pharmacy and Poisons Board, who regulate it.
Yes.
So you'll also need to visit the Kenya Pharmacy and Poisons Board, who regulates both drugs and softwares in the healthcare space. The only challenge would be, do they have
Capacity.
the capacity, not even rather the capacity, but the know-how, especially when it comes to one of the most recent technologies. So that's why we are saying these institutions, the government, will also have to go in ahead and start making regulations for the tech space, especially when it comes to new technologies.
All right. So between now and let's say January 2025, you will have gone through the final phase of your development and found gotten your product approved by the Pharmacy and Poisons Board. Other than that regulatory bit, are there any other challenges that you've been encountering that you think are significant that you would like to share?
Even acceptability of a new technology within the space, people are quite afraid, especially when it comes to specialists, and they feel we want to take their jobs away, which is not true. We want to help them become more effective. I'll give you a good example. When M-Pesa was launching in Africa, or rather in Kenya, banks said these guys are up to making us go home.
Yes.
But look at today, how banks work so well with M-Pesa. Just look at the reduction in banking halls. Quite some time ago, banking halls would occupy two, three floors of a building.
Yes.
But today it's probably less than even one floor.
Yeah.
A banking hall it's like the size of your sitting room.
Yeah.
So that too applies in this new technology. We are working with radiologists to make them more effective, to make them more faster, and also to let them focus on more complex cases.
Okay. So the fear that AI is going to take our jobs is quite a real one. How are you navigating that?
I would say, you see, every time a new technology emerges, it triggers fear. Fear to lose jobs, fear to take over the world. We saw that with computers. We saw that with the internet. And now again, we are seeing it with artificial intelligence. The truth is, AI will not take away your job. It will make some jobs redundant. So did computers and the internet. But it will create better jobs. A study by Goldman Sachs said that AI has the potential to revolutionize 300 million jobs. Imagine that, and create better quality jobs. So I think there is a huge potential than the risk, especially for people who will be quick to get the skills. Like if your organization will be using AI, you need someone to guide the technology so that it doesn't get out of context. So if you equip yourself with these skills, then you see you're one of the beneficiaries of AI. And again, we don't want to be left behind. You remember, we have always been playing catch-up games with technologies. With computers, we always waited for donation computers from the West. With the internet, we still have almost more than 80% of our country not connected to the internet. So we don't want to be left behind with AI. And once we start with policies that would favor and new technologies, adopting new technologies, being even optimistic about the new technologies would be very, very helpful. Because imagine if the internet and computers were at a 95% adoption, would have made things way easier for us. We'll probably be doing this podcast from home.
Thank you. Now, speaking of fears, Tom, could you address fears around safety? We're talking about diagnosis, and misdiagnosis, as you've said, is a serious issue. So, what would you say you're doing to address those fears of potential harm to patients?
So in our case, I'll start in the case of medical imaging diagnosis. We have institutions like FDA that lay down a structure and say human beings are as accurate as 65% when it comes to diagnosis. And so they will set the parameters at 85. You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
That means that the technology is a little bit higher. But think about it this way. For every specialist, for instance, according to the Kenya Radiologist Board, for you to be a certified radiologist, you must at least practice for 7 years, right? So probably how many images have you seen over the 7 years? And we try double and triple that number when it comes to AI. So that it has more cases and it's at least more effective. And that's now how, and that I think that should make you feel safe because we're going an extra mile by ensuring what is done normally, we double or even triple that.
Okay.
But generally, when it comes to AI technology, we missed that train with social media. Today, someone come forward a message that they haven't verified whether it's true or not. We don't want that to happen with AI. So we welcome regulation of AI. You don't want someone calling you, or rather someone calling your family, talking exactly like you and asking for money.
Yes.
So, but if we regulate that early enough, that means that's not going to happen.
Thank you. So, in the AI field, there are questions of ethics, and similar to the safety concerns. How are you addressing questions around the ethics of AI as you build your product?
I would say engaging end users, especially to ensure that we stay within the ethical means.
Okay.
And ensuring that we also are ethical in terms of what we develop, especially in the general AI space. So being even human, being even logical, being even doing even what you would want someone, or rather how you'd like someone to treat you. That's ethics. And that's how I'm viewing it, and that's how we're doing it, and we are ensuring that at least we maintain ethical standards.
Thank you, Tom. So you talked about welcoming regulation, and I'm wondering whether you can get a bit more specific in terms of sharing with us what you see as regulatory loopholes that you think regulators need to think about as they look into the AI space.
I would say regulation, especially when it comes to AI, it has to be very specific and very practical. It's not about you showing a certain document and you get your approval. It's about showing your processes.
Mm-hmm.
It's about showing how it really works. It's about showing consistency. Because once it's about saying this is what you do without a lot of scrutiny, then we are not even regulating the technology itself. You just
Yes.
declaring that this is what I'm doing, this is my certificate of incorporation, this is my account, certified account books. We really need to see, is your technology consistent? Is it actually doing what you say it's doing? Can we have a consistent precision score with your technology? Because with AI, it tends to fluctuate over time. So it might be very accurate today, but a few months later, based on how it's being maintained in production, it might degrade. So you need to show consistency. So if regulators will not focus on the technical issues and focus more on the theoretical issues, that means they won't be playing their role. It won't be regulation. It will be like a cheat and chat game. As far as you show these things theoretically, then you're good to go. But we need to move, or rather AI requires us to move to a more practical regulatory framework.
Thank you. So, in one of the last questions, you talked about being concerned that the regulators may not quite have the ability to regulate this field. Might you have any thoughts on what can be done to address that?
I believe we have always done so, borrowing from systems, or rather places, or rather from economies that have managed to hack this through and making it a fit to us. So it will be very important if we borrow, for instance, what the FDA is doing, if we borrow what HIPAA is doing, and maybe build more context for our market. So it always starts from there. See what the person who's way ahead of me is doing, then try fine-tune that to make it even more specific to my case scenario.
Thank you. And are you yourselves, as AI innovators, working with the regulators in this country or in Africa?
I wouldn't say not directly. Probably see once in a while a document that they have shared, but not really sitting down with them. It's about you see, regulators are very intelligent people. They have the whole theory about these new technologies, but we also want a practical bit to it, and they really understand how it works. It might work with some types of data, but some types of data it's not working, especially where we have limited data. So if we take a case scenario where we are regulating something with that you have borrowed from a theory which assumes there is plenty of data, and come to the reality where we do not have a lot of data to back this up, then it becomes a challenge. So we still want to a lot engage with stakeholders, even as like the data protection, really get to understand how we protect our systems from hacks and all that, rather than just the theory part. Having an SSL certificate probably on your website doesn't mean you're secure.
Yes.
You have to have more practical ways of doing things.
So there definitely is scope for engagement with regulators. Apart from them, are there any other collaborations that you think would be important to help you as innovators achieve your vision?
Basically, also industry players, especially developing in the healthcare space, you need more activity when it comes to even end users, the specialists themselves, the funders, people impact investors. We need more collaboration. Basically, talking about the whole ecosystem, we need to intentionally work together to see success in terms of technological advances. Again, for AI to be very effective, we still need good internet. We still need state of the art computers that are able to process these big data.
Tom, you were part of the Vigro Africa and IDRC AI4H program, and I'm curious to hear what your experience was like in the program. What were your highlights, and what would you say you learned from the program?
In fact, I'm still part of it. So I would say the biggest highlight, especially the focus on ethical developments in AI. Also, even having a stakeholder who's thinking ahead in terms of how to support startups in the AI space. Also launching, or rather vouching for the availability of data, availability of processes to do things, especially when it comes to data and the new way of doing things is what I would say was unique to us and the team. Then even sharing more knowledge on how we should go about some of the aspects while building was and is continuing to be very helpful.
Wonderful. And anything to add in terms of being part of a cohort and being able to collaborate with other AI innovators?
Yeah. I would say you're able to see the different processes of how things are done. You're able to exchange ideas. You're able to even partner in some areas. Probably very good at cloud. You get to consult at cloud. Very good at data pre-processing. Able to understand how the pre-processing is working. So it's been amazing, especially interacting as founders, as innovators. You're able to understand different perspectives and appreciate also how far you've come, and also like you have someone you can lean on as you move forward.
Wonderful. Thank you. Now, as we start to draw near a close, what are your predictions for the AI space in healthcare and in Africa for the next few years?
It's the future, I would say, but also depends on how me and you embrace it, and also depends on what our policies say towards the new technology. If policies push it back, then wow unto us. But if we have policies that encourage innovation, that encourage new technologies, that means we are growing, or rather we are breeding an environment that will allow thriving. But regardless, it's inevitable. We say change is inevitable. Long story short, AI is the future and we cannot wish it away.
Brilliant. So we're going to be seeing more and more application of AI in the coming days in this healthcare space.
Yeah.
Now, coming closer home, are there any exciting developments within your company that we can expect to see in the next few months?
Yes, the launch of version 2 of our technology, especially based on feedback that we have collected from our end users, is coming up very soon. We're excited. We'll have capabilities to, like I was saying, integrate with existing hospital infrastructure, that EHR, that PACS. You don't need to change it. It can be used on the same softwares.
Brilliant. So at this point, you are among the pioneers in Africa of AI assisted diagnosis in healthcare. From what you've learned so far, would you have what kind of advice would you have for other entrepreneurs wanting to come into the space?
I would say go for it, especially if you think a certain way of doing things, a revolutionary way of doing things would change perspectives. I would encourage you to try it. It all starts by having a prototype, then moving to a minimum viable product, then eventually you'll have a product, or rather, you'll have something that you can, a technology that you can sell in our market.
Great. We're looking forward to your launch. Is there anywhere where we can track your progress? Are you on socials? Where can we find you?
Yes, we're on LinkedIn, on our website, neurolabs.africa, our LinkedIn, Neurolabs Africa, Twitter, Neurolabs Africa, Instagram, Neurolabs Africa.
Great. Thank you very much, Tom. I'm rooting for you, and I really look forward to seeing how things will look like 12 months from now. So all the best.
Thanks a lot.
And thank you very much for taking the time
Thank
this
you.
afternoon.
Thank you. Thanks for having me as well.
Thank you.